prepare for an adventure that will take you around the world. 48 hours, right now.
It was supposed to be the adventure of a lifetime, not the last adventure of his life.
They popped out of the jungle. They started jabbing me with their guns and just screaming.
But when terrorists kidnapped this American, they got more than they bargained for.
Why didn't you bring a weapon with you?
I am a weapon.
I'm a 4th degree black belt in judo, 1st degree black belt in Shaolin Kung Fu.
One man's unforgettable adventure.
I'm so skinny now, my bones protrude through my clothing.
To hell and back.
I wonder if anybody even knows I'm alive.
Did they abuse you?
Also,
Dial 102, please.
It can happen in the light of day or the dead of night. An innocent person is abducted, and so begins a desperate race to rescue the victim. Good evening. It happens more than you think. Worldwide, by one estimate, there have been nearly 10,000 kidnappings in the last 8 years. Often the motive is money, but sometimes it's done for reasons you can't put a price on, for political gain or personal vengeance. Sometimes it is even done out of love. Tonight we bring you 2 stories of abduction, stories of passion and perseverance that sparked a worldwide search. You'll see how far some will go to find those they love, and how far those who have been abducted will go to survive. Troy Roberts begins with the tale of one man who set out on the biggest adventure of his life, which nearly cost him his life.
Motorcycling is the ultimate form of freedom. Soar through the mountains on these fresh-laid asphalt roads with gently banked turns that snake down through the jungle.
Glen Heggstad is on the adventure of a lifetime.
It's one of those dream rides you never want to end.
A year-long motorcycle trip from his home in Palm Springs, California.
Adventure travel is really the essence of my life at this point.
Through Mexico, Central America, and all the way to the tip of South America and back.
I like to ride motorcycles, I like Latin America, and the tip seemed like a nice place to go to.
20,000 miles along the toughest terrain in the world. Through countries torn by guerrilla warfare.
Are you drawn to hot spots? Are you drawn to danger?
Well, as opposed to Disneyland or a golf course, yeah.
Glen owns a security firm. He's a former Hell's Angel.
Yeah.
Who's seen his share of danger on motorcycle adventures before.
Yeah, I've been hit with baseball bats, 2x4s, tire irons, machetes. It's a package deal, you know, when you take that path.
But this time, he got more than he bargained for.
So you're an adventurer, a risk taker, and an outlaw. And a former hostage.
And a former hostage, that's right.
Last year, with his 50th birthday approaching, Glen began carefully planning his trip through Latin America.
He loves adventure. He lives for it, he thrives on it, but he's a very smart, savvy guy, too.
Good friend and fellow motorcycle enthusiast, Dennis Hoff.
He spent 6 months researching it, getting everything together, getting the proper motorcycle.
It's electric vest.
Proper computer systems, waterproof computers. I gave him GPS systems.
Satellite navigation.
So he could know where he's at all times. And he spent a lot of time in research, knowing where he was going and how he was going to get there.
No detail was overlooked. Glen even created a website under his nickname, The Striking Viking.
www.strikingviking.net.
Where he could post a daily journal of his travels.
We kept in contact, and I kept track of Glen by his emails, daily emails.
If Glen couldn't find access to the internet, his friends had other ways of tracking his progress.
The plan was to use a credit card every day, a certain credit card, and if he didn't use the card, we would know there was a problem.
You study, you prepare for it, and you go.
Glen left Palm Springs on October 1st, and a month later, after traveling 5,000 miles through Mexico and Central America, he rode into Bogota, Colombia, and into the crossfire of a brutal 30-year civil war. a conflict financed by drug trafficking and hostage-taking.
You knew that you were a potential target for the kidnappers. You knew that.
Absolutely.
And you accepted that risk.
Absolutely.
Why didn't you bring a weapon with you?
I am a weapon.
I'm a 4th degree black belt in judo, 3rd degree black belt in karate, a 1st degree black belt in Shaolin Kung Fu, and a 1st degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Brazilian.
What warnings were issued to you in Colombia before you left Bogota?
From talking to people, cops, soldiers, citizens, 50-50 on whether or not it was safe to ride.
From Bogota, Glen decided to travel northwest to the city of Medellin. But 6 hours into the trip, while driving along this highway, he was stopped at a military-style roadblock by a group of guerrillas armed with AK-47 rifles.
They popped out of the jungle and popped out from behind the bus, the guerrillas.
What did they tell you to do?
Get off the motorcycle, and then they started jabbing me with their guns and just screaming. They didn't realize I was American. And of course, they hit the lottery. They couldn't believe it.
So they marched you into the jungle?
Yeah, that was it. About 10, 15 minutes into the hike, I asked them, who are you? ¿Quién es ustedes? And they said, ELN.
The ELN, the National Liberation Army, is one of Colombia's guerrilla groups which funds its revolution through extortion and ransom for mass kidnappings. Last year, the rebels took 350 hostages. One of them was an American.
I got raked over the coals by these guys. They would tie me up and spit in my face, give me their little treatments, and spit in my face again. This was because I was an American.
His time in captivity would only get darker.
For the first 3 or 4 weeks, I'm struggling to survive.
Days with little or no food.
I'm so skinny now, my bones protrude through my clothing. I wonder if anybody even knows I'm alive.
And torture.
Did they abuse you physically?
Yeah.
That's next. When Glen Heggstad went searching for adventure in Latin America,
this was going to be the challenge of a lifetime.
Being taken hostage by left-wing guerrillas in the jungles of Colombia wasn't exactly what he had in mind.
Every single day while I was in captivity, I assumed that was the day I was going to be killed.
But his disappearance didn't go unnoticed. Back home in Carson City, Nevada, friends like Dennis Hoff were worried.
And I kept track of Glen by daily emails, strikingviking.net.
Up until now, Glen had been religiously posting messages on his website, but the emails had stopped. Hoff immediately contacted friends in Colombia who began searching for Glen.
We had people check all the hospitals from Bogota to Medellin, and nothing like that had happened. So at that point, we realized that he'd probably been kidnapped.
The American embassy in Bogota confirmed that Glen had been taken hostage, but Hoff claims they were slow in trying to win his release and refused to negotiate with the rebels.
The reality is we were ready to deal with the devil. We didn't care what the U.S. Embassy said or did. We want him out.
Frustrated, Glen's friends flew to Colombia and attempted to mount a rescue mission of their own.
We had the Army Ranger people, ex-Army Ranger people, prepared to try to find him and to rescue him.
But Colombian authorities learned about the unauthorized rescue plan and had Glen's friends deported from the country. By now, 3 weeks had passed, and Glen was losing hope that he'd ever emerge from the jungle alive.
Even when I'd finally rest and I'd lay down at night and bugs crawling all over me, I'd still be mumbling all night, I will survive, I will survive, I will survive, I will survive. This gringo's not going down easy.
Glen says his 23 years of martial arts experience helped him survive, but he was no match for guerrillas with guns.
But to take on a bunch of guys with machine guns when you don't have one, no, I don't think so.
10 hours a day, Glen was forced to march.
We'd be climbing straight up, we hit the ridge, and then down the other side.
With nothing more to sustain him than a bowl of rice and sugared water.
And every day it was más arriba, higher into the mountains.
In your mind, what was your only shot for survival?
My only shot for survival was to convince them that I was there to write about them.
The rebels gave him a pad and pen. He kept a diary during his 33 days in captivity.
Thanksgiving Day, 2001.
My first line is, I'm thankful that I'm still alive. The Commandante has been rallying the troops every morning now. Gives a short speech on discipline. They all sing the guerrilla fight song. I'm so skinny now, my bones protrude through my clothing. Sleeping on the hard floor at night with my bones directly on the cement floor is painful. I'm always hungry. I've stopped picking the insects out of my food. It's my only source of protein. I wonder if anybody even knows I'm alive.
Did they abuse you physically?
Yeah.
Because you weren't compliant, or just because they wanted to? Is it too difficult to talk about?
Need a break, huh? Can I take a break?
Sure.
I can't talk about that, okay? Don't even bring that up to me.
In his 33 days as a hostage, Glen endured beatings, mock executions, and degrading abuse.
I got it all under control except that. It just triggered something, you know, I can't.
Finally, on December 8th, Glen's ordeal ended as suddenly as it began.
They never wanted anything. They never asked for a dime.
The rebels alerted the Red Cross that a hostage would be released into their custody, possibly as part of a Christmas truce.
When I came through the clearing and I looked down and I saw the Red Cross wagon there, I mean, I was shaking. It was quite an emotional moment.
Glen lost 50 pounds in captivity, and while dehydrated and malnourished, he refused to be hospitalized. The Red Cross later turned Glen over into the custody of waiting FBI agents who brought him back here to the Bogota airport. Arrangements were made for a new passport and a ticket on the first plane back to the United States. But to everyone's surprise, Glen had other plans.
I believe it would destroy me as a man to give up and go home.
Remarkably, Glen resolved to continue his trip.
He's just going to do it. He was not coming home. Case closed, full stop, I'm going. That's it.
A month later,
nothing stops the striking Viking.
a new bike arrived in Quito, Ecuador.
Is that a beautiful sight?
And a new laptop computer and digital camera.
Spare GPS.
All gifts from his friends back home.
As soon as they got word that I was alive, and as soon as they got word that I was being released, they were hustling another bike, they were ordering parts.
Sounds like great friends, Glen.
Yeah. That's an understatement.
But the rest of his journey presented a new set of challenges. Glen made it to the tip of South America in little more than a month, but rough terrain and a hard winter eventually took their toll.
Little Kawasaki was on its last leg in Brazil, so I picked up this brand new BMW 650 GS, which is the ultimate adventure travel machine.
From Brazil, Glen traveled all the way to Tijuana, Mexico, where we caught up with him just a mile south of the U.S. border.
How do I feel now? I really haven't thought about it. I think it's going to hit me when I cross that border.
And he won't be alone.
These are my boys from Palm Springs. My cousin came from Norway.
They're here to escort him home to Palm Springs.
American citizen.
From the tip of my toes to the top of my head.
Welcome to America.
Thank you very much. I'm home!
So, after 8 long months, a kidnapping,
Viking has returned!
and some 25,000 miles, the adventure of a lifetime
This is it, brother.
is over.
I can safely say there's never been a dull moment. Never been a time that I wanted to turn back. Never been a time I was sorry I was there. Yeah, Jack!
And he gives much credit of his safe return to his friends and supporters.
Tremendous amount of support from people, and that's really what kept me going. I'm home. I'm home.
Glen Heggstad